I'm going to allow this to populate a little bit as everybody comes into our session here this morning, evening, afternoon, depending upon where you are. Excellent. Excellent. All right. All right. I'm going to give everyone a few more minutes to get on.
What do we call you? The president-elect? What do we call you?
Pence.
Kurt, you can call me whatever you want. Just keep
Kind of God in the second place. What's that?
No. I am president of CORFAC International. You're very proud vice president of our
Oh, okay.
But thank you, and very much appreciate it. So it's a 12:02. I'll give it another minute or two. And we've got a packed day here, so I want to make sure that we have enough time to get everybody in, get all the questions answered, and move forward. So let's see. Give it another minute or so. Welcome, everyone. All right, we got a good group today. Very nice. Looks like we got the majority of the first wave in. All right. Jennifer, good to start? All righty. So, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, depending upon where you are tuning in from today. I'm Joe Latina, your current vice president. We have a great panel today for our discussion. The CORFAC Principles panel, best practices for surviving and thriving in turbulent markets. Essentially, this is going to be a roundtable discussion. We're going to be asking many questions to our our panelists, principals, and we welcome as many questions as you'd like. We ask that you please put them in the chat. I will be reading. First question, this is not only for principals, Michael, so anyone is welcome. So if there's other people that need to get on now. We're going to get into the full just this in just a minute. Before we get into my introduction of the panelists, I would like to thank our sponsor today, Build Out. Build Out has been with CORFAC for many years. Great organization, a real friend of the organization, and a great product. Patterson Woods is a Build Out firm. We are very happy with the product, and obviously Build Out has coordinated with CORFAC in populating the CORFAC website with our property data. So with that, I would like to give a few minutes to the guy with the coolest name, Chris Kriska from Build Out. Chris?
Thanks, Joe. I appreciate it. And, excited to be on here. I just want to start by thanking, Jonathan, Diane, Jennifer, and Christy, and the CORFAC team for really, putting this stuff together on, in such weird times. I wish that I could say that I'm happy to be addressing, the panelists and the CORFAC network over a Zoom video, but I think we all know that's not true. I wish we were, having a few drinks together and shaking hands, and I hope that that's the case in the spring. So I really look forward to that. As you guys are getting ready for this session on best practices for surviving and thriving in these turbulent times, I'm thinking, from my perspective, I'm sure it's different than many folks on the call, but I go straight to technology and, the future of this industry and what place technology will play in this brokerage space in particular. And, I don't think that right now is necessarily the best time to invest in technology, but sort of hunkering down, figuring your way through this. We're going to get through this. And I'm a firm believer that technology is going to be at the center of this industry. For those of you that don't know, Build Out recently closed our biggest round of funding ever. And I wanted to just tell the group here before we get started a little bit about why we did that. For years, we have really put our heads down and focused on creating real value for commercial real estate brokerages. We've asked questions about where your real pain points are, and we've done our absolute best to solve those challenges. We believe that right now in this industry, many, if not most of the technology players in this industry are in some way or another coming after some part of the broker's commission. This question about disintermediation comes up all the time, and it's real. And we raised this round of funding with the goal of keeping the broker as close to the transaction as possible, because we believe that they create real value. And what you'll start seeing from Build Out in Q1 is more products than you've ever seen from us before. And you're going to see new integration tools, new partnerships, and potentially even, you know, some of your favorite other players in the space coming together to create something even more powerful. We are thrilled to have the opportunity to work with so many commercial brokerages, but in particular for this call today with so many of you CORFAC firms that have believed in our tools and used these to make your business more efficient. I promise you that we are going to do an even better job going forward. We're going to deliver a whole lot of value over the next decade. And if anybody wants to talk to us about what's coming, how we're seeing the future, you know, anything, you know, that's bothering you, anything that we can do better, I really invite you to please reach out to me personally. I'm just Chris, KRIS at buildout.com, and I'm happy to talk to anybody about that at any time. Lastly, I guess two more things. We're giving away an Amazon Echo. It's going to go to somebody that's one of the participants of today. So look out for that, just winning a prize here. And Joe mentioned the Build Out Sync product, the listings that we're powering at the CORFAC website. For that, you guys actually have a customer success representative at Build Out that's watching over this relationship and account. And the best contact for that will be Alex Manich, who is Alex at buildout.com. Guys, again, I really appreciate it. Can't say enough good things about CORFAC, and we truly do love you guys as an organization. Thank you for believing in us early and often. I hope this is an awesome session.
Thank you, Chris. Very much appreciated. And I can tell you that, you know, at least from our standpoint, the feeling's mutual. Build Out's been a great vendor for us, a great partner for us, and going forward, I anticipate for a long time to come. So thanks again for all that you guys do over there. Much appreciated. So with that, I'm going to introduce to you our prestigious panel of principals that will be answering questions today. So with us today is Eric Hinkleman from Voight Commercial in Southern California. Eric, a little brief explanation of who and what you are.
Sure. Thanks, Joe. So I oversee Voight Real Estate Services. We are a Southern California-based brokerage firm. We've been in business for close to 50 years, have a half a dozen offices, and at last count, 128 brokers. We handle pretty much all of the major food groups, and we are the CORFAC affiliate for Orange County and San Diego.
Excellent. Thank you, Eric. Next up, my friend Chuck Mitchell from Orlando, Florida. Little kudos to Chuck. Chuck jumped right in head first. I guess this is your second year now, Chuck.
Second full year.
He's been a great asset to us. Great market down there in Orlando. Chuck, tell us a little bit about you and your company.
Yeah, privileged to be able to talk to CORFAC family. I represent First Capital Property Group. I'm the founder of that. We're celebrating our 25th year in October. And similar to Eric, although we're probably a lot smaller, that we kind of touch all the industry areas, and but we also do about 50% of our income comes from property management, and so we also have an affiliate service company, facilities service company, which complements what we do. So we run our market, it kind of runs I-4 corridor. So we're kind of lower Orlando, Orange County, or all the way to past just south of Disney, all the way up to Daytona Beach. So we kind of run that I-4 corridor, not including Tampa. Although we do have products over there, that's not our primary market. So CORFAC has been awesome for us. Just got an email last night from another CORFAC brother. And so we really enjoyed it. And just want to encourage folks that, particularly the principals on here, get your folks involved. Our guys had a great time in Mexico.
Excellent. Yes, we did. Kind of the last hurrah, wasn't it? Good stuff. Thank you, Chuck. And with that, we're going to go across the pond to Ian Sayer. He's the principal and at HWBC CORFAC International in Dublin, Ireland. And as mentioned previously, CORFAC will be going to Dublin, fingers crossed, God willing, in July of next year for our international conference. And we'll be hosting that for us, and we're very much looking forward to that. So Ian, with that, tell us a little about you and your company.
Thanks, Joe. Good evening from Dublin. It's just after 5 o'clock here. I'm sorry to report the pubs are still closed in Dublin, so we may be forced to delay the conference till the situation improves. However, delighted to be joining the panel today. Just a small bit about HWBC. We're a firm 38 strong, based in Dublin, as Joe said. We cover all of the Republic of Ireland, so we wouldn't cover north of the border in Ireland. We're primarily an investment buy house, but we do seek to stay involved in the properties that we purchase for clients through management agency and professional services. And as I'm sure we'll talk about, some of those services are increasingly important in times like this. I suppose from a CORFAC perspective, Ireland is a very small country, has a very open economy, so our client base is almost entirely based overseas. So as a result, the CORFAC network is extremely important to us, and we certainly would get a great deal of benefit both from the affiliates across Europe and also in the US.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Ian. Much appreciated. And last but certainly not least, from one of my favorite cities in the world, we have Carol Klein-Ong, who is the CEO and principal of MDL Group in fabulous Las Vegas, Nevada. Carol.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for allowing me to be with you. MDL Group is a full-service commercial brokerage and property management firm. I am the co-founder and CEO. We have been doing this for over 30 years. I personally have been in this arena, mostly focused on property management, much like your people, Chuck, at your end, since the age of 19. So I'll do the math. It's a long time, so don't need to. And like I said, we all forms of commercial, and it's a delight to be here. We, our brokerage team, we have been affiliated with CORFAC since 2015, and it's been an amazing, wonderful partnership.
Thank you, Carol. Much appreciated. Excellent. So with that, we're going to jump into our discussion. I'm going to ask everyone a series of questions, which you will see on the screen. And we're going to basically have a roundtable discussion. I would ask that everyone stay muted to keep the flow. There's a lot of you out there, so I don't necessarily want to, the presentations to be clear so that everyone can hear them. Please, again, if you have any questions, please post them in the chat. I will be monitoring that as we go on, and we'll get those questions out there as we progress. So let's start back with Eric, and we're going to ask our first question. Tell us, please, what has been COVID's biggest impact on your business to date, Eric?
Well, I mean, I guess the easy answer is revenues, but look, I think most of us on this call going into March, our industry was nothing but rainbows and lollipops. I mean, everything was just going great. And then we hit a complete and utter, halt, and business dried up, or it went into a complete and utter state of paralysis. And so the biggest impact has been obviously from a revenue standpoint, but also just the unknown and indecision. And for months, I was signing off on nothing but short-term extensions and Band-Aids. And the market really did, at least out here, go into a state of paralysis. And so the biggest impact, obviously, has been a financial as well as the unknown that we're still kind of muddling through. It's my short and fast answer for you.
Any type of recovery since that initial hit?
So yeah, so our actually March and April were fine. May, we started to see some slippage, and then June and July, nobody was high-fiving each other. But I will say in August, things really picked up, and in September so far, we've picked up. One of the fortunate things, at least with our company, is of our 128 brokers, somewhere in the neighborhood of 90 of them are industrial or warehouse. And at least in Southern California, that's been an industry or a market type that I think has been affected the least. Everything got hit early on, but I think that there was so much pent up demand, frankly, going into the pandemic, that some of it is thawed a little bit quicker, I think, than some of the other asset classes.
Thank you, Eric. Much appreciated with that. Chuck, I'm going to pose the same question to you. When are we going to get to go to Disney World again?
Well, Disney's open, but it's a certain percentage of folks that can go in, but they've closed the gates a couple times because it's a little bit easier to max out the attendance.
Sure.
But for us, it's a similar situation. Half of our brokerage is retail, so it's really hurt us a lot. So we're seeing a lot shorter deals on the renewals, and the newer deals, we're finding folks that are talking, but kind of skittish about signing the deals. But we have found that our property management business has picked up. So this is a focus typically in downtimes. What you find is the owners start thinking about property management, right? So this is a time where we've been able to excel. We've actually expanded our property management assignments and portfolio during this period of time, which is kind of crazy. And this gives us an opportunity to stay closer to our owners too, is because they're always asking what is the accounts receivable looking like at the beginning of each month.
Sure. Well, let's jump across the pond and get a little different perspective. What's going on how's it affected you guys over in Ireland, Ian?
Yeah, it's a very similar story over here. I mean, I think on a positive note, we've in HWBC have had quite a good COVID in terms of deals that we had on the go. Going into COVID, we got across the line, so we closed about 200 million worth of purchases in April, which was the height of the lockdown. So that gave us a 48% market share in Ireland, which was certainly something we were very pleased about, and we certainly used as a stick to prick our larger competitors. But I think that the issue we're facing now, certainly as a buy-side firm, is pipeline. There was no pipeline generated over the summer. As I said, by virtue of staying involved in properties, we've been able to keep ourselves going through the management work and lease restructuring work that has come out of the crisis. We've seen particular hurt, I think, in common with most markets in retail. Retail leasing has become a very, very difficult business to be in. You know, we remain committed to it, but I think the structure of the way that the business works here, the amount of work required to get retail leases across the line for the fees generated, you know, does not at the moment stack up. So that's something that we are looking at, and something that I know landlord clients are aware of. So I think, as I say, the main issue for us is decision making has been essentially put on hold. And then clearly from a European perspective, and especially from an Irish perspective, we also have Brexit on the horizon. And again, as I say, Ireland is a very open economy, and therefore we are very exposed. You know, also to political changes in the US. You guys have an election going on over there that potentially could impact us in November. And then at the end of the year, we've got Brexit. So plenty to look forward to. You know, as I say, it's certainly been a year to forget so far.
Indeed. Thank you for that perspective. Carol, what's going on in Las Vegas? I know your mayor was in the news there for a little bit.
No place like Las Vegas. So for us, you know, this pandemic, I believe it's caused us to be better practitioners. We actually focused on three things: security, safety, and soundness. And when you look at those, and on safety, you start with your employees and their families, and then you reach out to your clients. And in the security arena, and much like what our sponsors spoke about, cybersecurity, when we've had to put people in remote working relationships, that's been something to be, that was a huge impact on us. And then the soundness. And I think this was something that was really actually quite good, and that it really caused us to take a pause and say, when we're having the collaborative conversations, whether it's on the brokerage side, deciding if that client is going to move forward, pause, if that tenant is going to downsize, and then on the property management side, is that landlord going to be compromised with decisions he makes when he looks at what his loan covenants may say. So it's had a huge impact all the way around. But at the end of the day, I really believe that the staff members that I have the privilege to work with every day are better, we're stronger, we're more patient, and clearly we're learning. This journey is teaching all of us every day, like never before, that we can then pass along to our clients, and with the ROI of revenue.
Great advice. Carol, stay open. I'm gonna go into the next question. I'm gonna start with you. You've actually kind of touched on this briefly, but maybe elaborate a little bit further about as far as what your firm has done to not only survive but thrive in these and past challenging markets.
Okay, with pleasure. You know, when we talk about surviving, we have to start with our staff and the impact and the fear factor and the potential impact it has on their family members. A lot of our employees have family who have compromised health issues. So we've been very mindful of that. We immediately put into play, for those that we had remote working, Zoom calls. We did Monday morning huddles, either on the phone or via Zoom. Much like you guys, we significantly modified the look of our lobby to keep everybody safe there. And at the end of the week, we as partners thought it was very important to stay connected with our staff. So every week we would send an internal message to our staff, and it was a message of, you know, encouragement, and also what was really going on within our company and what we saw our local economy. We also have stayed very close with our clients. If there's newsworthy information that we could share with them, we sent it to them immediately. In the spirit of thriving, our clients look to us for guidance, knowledge, and creative ideas for handling the tenant requests and the rent relief that we've all been barraged with since March 17th. And I think we listen differently. And we position the various scenarios for our landlords based on the impact it's going to have for them. And that impact it's financial, yes, but it's also what's the property exposure going to look like? If you have a huge vacancy, at what point is your insurance coverage in jeopardy? And then if you have a vacancy, what happens if you have a break-in or, God forbid, a leak? So when we talk about thriving, it's the collaborative conversations about the scenarios and what do we need to put in place to provide some security and safety. That's been a lot of what we've been doing, 18 hours a day.
Understood. Yeah, we're all working a little harder these days, aren't we?
Yes.
Thank you, Carol. That's great insight and great information. And we'll go back across the pond to Ian and pose the same question. What's your firm been doing to survive and potentially thrive in this challenging market and or past markets?
Yeah, I mean, we've concentrated a bit on diversification of our business. You know, as I say, we're very, very focused on the buy side of investments. And as I say, we try to stay involved in businesses, in buildings through their life cycle in the in the investment hold period. But then we've been sort of looking sort of slightly outside of the, certainly in an Irish context, traditional broker involvement, in that we launched a debt advisory business at the beginning of the year, where we have formed a joint venture with an experienced real estate banker, and we have been providing debt advice to investors. Again, part of this, you know, is driven by the investor base we're dealing with. We have people who are not necessarily familiar with the players in our local financing market, but that has opened up other opportunities of interest for us, because once you're raising debt for people, you know, they're also coming to you. Can you raise look at raising slices of equity for them as well? So, you know, we've got a bit more, perhaps almost a little bit further up the value chain in terms of you know, the advice we're providing to people, and really understanding our clients' businesses and investment rationale a lot better, which then, you know, hopefully enables us to provide a better service to them. And I think the other sort of area of focus has been, you know, we have seen a fair amount of turbulence in the jobs market, in terms of people being released from both clients and competitors. We've seen a good few startups, and we've tried to put time you know, into new startups, you know, especially sort of young people starting out, really on the basis that, you know, certainly, again, and I'm sure this is true globally, it's a very relationship-driven business. And I think people remember people who helped them out when they were just starting out, you know. And, you know, we're not necessarily drawing in huge fees from some of these guys, but, you know, we are there at day one. As I say, with the additional expertise we've brought in through the debt advisory business, we're able to, you know, provide advice to some of these new investors who are just starting out, who are trying to raise equity to pursue projects, and clearly we've got contacts all across Europe that we would act on behalf of on a regular basis. So for us, you know, it's an investment in the future. You know, we're hopefully going to get the return on the goodwill that we have generated through those initiatives.
Excellent. Great stuff, Ian. Thank you very much. And as I continue in reverse order, Chuck, I'd like to ask you.
Yeah, just let me, a few things just I could add that I would echo a lot of things that Carol's mentioned. We decided real quick that we wanted to increase our communication with our clients. It's not only our leasing clients, our investors, and our property owners. So that's important. And from our brokerage side, we said, hey, start writing down all the people that you want to have a relationship with now or down the road, and start sowing seed with these folks. They got time. They'll take your call now where they might have been too busy not to take your call. And I would just encourage everybody, particularly from the brokerage side of it. Yesterday's, if you didn't hear yesterday, but Mason out of Detroit just really had a great words yesterday how he increased his marketing footprint, and just touching base from a brokerage standpoint. And there was some really good information, because what we had did from at least from a company standpoint, we started emphasizing a little bit more of our marketing and our footprint.
Excellent, Chuck. And that's funny. Actually, that was going to kind of be my lead into the next question, was Mason's marketing yesterday, too. For those of you that weren't on that session, I can tell you that we kind of just briefly have done something similar, and we're going after some trophy pieces. I, too, Chuck, am, not primarily, but probably the majority of my work has been hospitality and retail through the years. And, as you know, that's very difficult for that too. We've obviously adapted, especially in our tertiary market, and we've been doing a lot of flex and industrial deals and a lot of investment sales as well. But one thing that we have done is I've gone after some of that trophy retail for the future. And in doing so, I've created the marketing in advance, and brought it to the meeting and said, here's what I'm going to do for you and more. And it's been successful. We've been able to pick up several projects that we might not have been able to get prior to, or would have been in a lot more competition prior to. We're kind of showing our value in the fact that we're willing to work now, as opposed to putting our pencils down and waiting for this to be over. But with that, Eric, you've been waiting. Coming back to you, I'm going to ask you the same question. What has your firm done to survive and thrive in this situation?
Yeah, I'll be very quick. It kind of dovetailing on what Chuck said. Survive, I think, is the optimal term, but from a thriving standpoint, I'll say two things. And for those of you that are looking to recruit, this was a phenomenal time. This is a time when those folks that are 3, 4, 5 years into business, one, question whether or not they should be in the business, and two, and more importantly, are they at the right platform for what they want to do? And if you can provide that for them, this was a great opportunity. They've got a little bit of time on their hands. They're trying to figure out what their next step in life is going to be, et cetera. And so we were fortunate in March and April and May to grab some folks that are great rising stars that are 3, 4, and 5 years in the business. And then the second thing I would say, and it was kind of touched on, and I know, Joe, this has been a big part of what you've been doing the last 6 months. Come March, April, May, you had everybody working remotely. The layers of filters and blocks to get to decision makers, I think, had been greatly reduced. So you could get a hold of people. And for those folks that kind of kept their eye on the ball and made the calls and were persistent, you can get a hold of decision makers. And it may not have been business right then and there, but you absolutely could set yourself up for the future. And we had a number of folks that just were persistent on the phone and picked up a fair amount of business, and they're really starting to reap the rewards right now. So those folks that, like I said, kept their eye on the ball, I think are certainly got themselves set up for the fourth quarter and into 2021. So there is the ability to thrive if you decided not to just go and work out or hang out and watch TV or whatever the case may be. Those that actually stayed on the phone, you could get a hold of people that ordinarily you couldn't. And I think they're really going to reap the benefits.
Yeah, I mean, everybody has their own style and their own approach. And, I always like to say that anything works and nothing doesn't. I professionally like to list product, and I like that because I like to control the product. So, again, in this situation right now, instead of putting my pencil down, I'm trying to control and gather as much product to put in our portfolio, to obviously have product to work with now and then have it to work with in the future as well. It seems to be working for us. But Eric, I'm going to stay with you as we go on to the next question here. You've kind of touched base on a lot of this in your statement, but if you just have anything else to add about best prospecting, business development strategies. I mean, I know we've all kind of talked about this a little bit, but briefly, if you have anything to add with regards to that.
Yeah, not really. I mean, for me, I'm in management, or as some of our folks like to affectionately call me, overhead. It's staying in touch with prospects and recruits and so forth. And again, we all can make money going up as well as going down. Obviously, it's a heck of a lot more fun making money going up. But just staying in touch with our folks and our prospective clients and current clients seems to have been the best thing for us. And we provided a heck of a lot of training also, especially for our under 5-year folks.
Excellent. Great stuff. Kind of going back down the line, if you just kind of want to recap the question about best prospecting. Chuck, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, the only thing I would add that Eric hasn't said or we haven't said already, I would say stay close to your promoters. And what do I mean by promoters? I'm talking about folks that you have a relationship with, you like doing business with them, but it may not be the person that you're doing business with. Give you an example. What about your real estate attorneys? You're not going to lease space to them. You work with them, but maybe they also have clients that you can help and assist their clients. Maybe it's somebody you just don't do business with, but you have a relationship with, you contact with, and maybe you network around. Maybe there's a network group, but find your promoters, people who will come and say, hey, I know that person. I'll put a good word in for you. Or that's the person said, I have a friend, Chuck, and his firm that can help you. So stay close to your promoters.
Excellent. Great stuff. Thank you, Chuck. So Ian, anything to add?
Yeah, but I really did just echo what Eric and Chuck have said. It's all about talking to people. Even if we don't have a deal to talk about, we're just trying our very best to stay close to people. And that's hopefully going to count for us in the coming quarters.
Thank you, David. Carol, anything to add on that subject?
Just real briefly, that it's exciting to hear all of this because in essence, ladies and gentlemen, we're getting back to marketing 101. This is what we learned the first year that we've been in this business. And it worked then, and it still works, and it's going to work in the future. The only other thing I would add is when we look at our value-added services, those things may have changed depending on who your client base is. And we added drone service, and that was something that really, again, it seemed 4 years ago didn't seem possible. And the marketing, being very robust in the marketing, has been something that we have really focused on. But that 101, picking up the phone, talking to people, knocking on doors, we've been doing that a long time, you guys. I'm thrilled it's still working.
Great stuff. Carol, I want to stay with you as we transition to the next question, which again, some of these are kind of overlapping, but we also had a question in the chat that was essentially similar to this question. So the topic is basically going to be, what are you doing for your younger, less experienced, new agents right now during this market?
We are really aligning very closely with them. We have a lot of great marketing programs available. Our newer people that come in, obviously they become part of the team, and we drag them to every event. We have them jump on every Zoom conference call available. And the reality is it's okay to say, I don't know something, because somebody down the hall does. Chaim and Jared, my partners here at MDL Group, are huge about mentoring and taking them out on calls and just getting them the experience. Financially, the newer ones, we do support them, and because what we do is mostly commission-based, obviously, but we try to help support that and also provide them some of the resources that just give them the head start. That's what we're doing.
Excellent. Great advice, Carol. Brian in the chat, I'm going to get to your question after I gave everybody an opportunity to answer this one. Thank you for that. Ian, I want to bounce to you again and just ask what you're doing for your younger or less experienced brokers right now.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think it's the younger people who have suffered most from working from home, because I think we're the more experienced end are, know the people we're dealing with. We have track record with them, and we have long-standing personal relationships. And I think it's been a lot harder for people who are just starting out, who haven't had the opportunity to form those bonds. So we've really just been trying to support, the younger staff members as much as we can, encouraging them to keep knocking doors, as we were saying earlier. To find, the people to back, to invest the time in, to show interest in, and we're supporting them in doing that. Then also, certainly in an Irish context, we've, there's been numerous redundancies and calls of staff in the larger agents, and it's something that we avoided doing in the last downturn, and again is something we will try our very best to do. We're trying to show loyalty to our staff in hard times, and keeping that esprit de corps that we're all in this together, and that we'll try and continue to support each other, even though revenues would be markedly down.
Excellent. Thank you for that. And Chuck?
Only thing I would add is that in the encouragement side, as I like to say, keep sowing the seed. It's a long race. And this business is a long race, and the more seed you sow up front, the more you reap.
Excellent advice. To quote Aerosmith, life's a journey, not a destination, right? Eric, would you like anything to add?
I totally agree with everything. The one thing I would add, and by the way, I'm not a sadist, and that is, I actually think starting your career in a difficult time or facing it really early on is great, because if you can weather through it, you have such a better appreciation of what it takes to get a deal done and the due diligence that goes into what it takes to get a deal done, et cetera, that I think starting in a really slow cycle is great. The young lady or young man who starts when the market is just on fire and they're just picking up the phone and getting deals done, I'm not sure they're very well prepared for the future. And so one of the things, the advice I give to our young people is take the bull by the horns and embrace this. Yeah, it's difficult right now, and we'll provide all the resources you need and all the guidance, but being able to start and then ultimately thrive and survive, I should say, a difficult cycle is a great foundation for the rest of your business career.
Great stuff. Thank you very much. So I'm going to get to Brian. Brian Cass from Garibaldi has a question for the group. I'm just going to open it up. Just jump in. So the question essentially is, how many clients have reached out to have you handle lease buyouts, and have landlords been receptive to buyouts, or have they been citing their lender restrictions or pushed back and simply offered nothing or possibly rent relief? Just chime in, please. Anybody that will have a comment. Carol, do you have something?
I'll jump on that. We have had a lot of that, and our landlords, for the most part, have been very supportive in at least considering what they can do. And yes, in some areas, depending on what the covenants of their loan docs say, that has been at the forefront. Interesting, we've had a lot of the national tenants, even before, I don't even think March was over, and we were getting letters of, we need rent relief, and some of it was, I think, just boilerplate, and respectfully, some of it was absolutely ridiculous. And so we were able to push back on that, and at the end of the day, some of it worked out really well. And I will tell you, there are two national tenants that have sent us letters of appreciation, and they have done really well and kept things moving along and kept with their agreements. And one of them is Gerber Collision. A lot of us have those throughout the country, and we've done some short-term things with them, and it's caused them to be able to stay in business. And then for those of you that have McDonald's, they're in a lot of our retail centers, and they didn't ask for anything. and they were very supportive of their neighboring tenants. So, but landlords, some of our landlords initially said no, and then we had to really talk through what the potential downside might be. And then on the tenant side, real quick, the reality is they had to get real. What really was going on? We asked for financials. There were certain, there's certain grants that are available, so we kind of walked them through that. And quite frankly, we asked them to give us proof that they had, in essence, either applied or received or were rejected. And with those conversations, caused the landlords to maybe consider different things. But we had one tenant that wanted up to 2 years of first they said 6 months of abatement and then some deferment, and that just was not sustainable. I'm happy to report that tenant is still in business.
Excellent. Anyone else like to add anything on that topic?
Well, I can give you the sort of European perspective, if you like, on that. I mean, again, it's been a very similar picture here. We have seen landlords, lenders being very supportive as well. I think there was very quickly a recognition that, especially in the retail and hotel sectors, where there had been enforced closures, certainly across a lot of Europe, retail malls and hotels were forced to close for a number of months. So in those circumstances, I think everybody has kind of realized that hey, look, a guy is not going to be able to pay you rent in those circumstances. But I think we've also seen as we've come out of that lockdown, give and take. Can the tenant give something to help the landlord? Because be that removing a break option or extending their commitment to the property in return for a bit of leniency in terms of rent free or a lower rent for a longer period of time. So I think our experience has been that where people are willing to approach this on an open book basis, and that counts for both sides of that discussion, the tenant as to why the rent is no longer sustainable, and the landlord as to, right, well, I've an interest bill and amortization to pay. If both sides are open with each other and understand each other's particular position, we find usually an accommodation can be reached.
Excellent. Great information. Chuck, Eric, anything to add? Good. All right. So I'm going to go back to the program, and I'm actually, all right, so I'm going to skip. I think we've covered for the most part that next question, and I want to get to the second question here, which I think is very important for us. And I'm going to start back with Eric and ask you, what commercial real estate sectors do you believe will thrive post-COVID and which will struggle to survive?
So I think it depends on the market, and we have 4 very distinctly different markets here on the call, and I think you probably get a different answer. The easy answer for us, at least here in Southern California, I think that the industrial warehouse aspect is going to be fine because there was such pent-up demand beforehand, and what is the way e-commerce is blown up, and so many of the other industries that are dependent on distribution or light manufacturing locally here. I think the warehouse distribution space will do very well. With all due respect to our friends at Helmsley Spear and TRI that handle purely urban areas, I have a daughter that's lived and worked in San Francisco the last 3.5 years, and she is moving out at the end of this year. And I've heard so many stories of urban flight. So I think my knee jerk would be the one that's going to struggle, other than retail for some of those obvious reasons, is potentially multifamily, certainly in the urban areas. And it'll probably thrive, frankly, in the suburban areas. Seems like there is a huge flight out of the pure urban core as far as living.
Excellent. Great stuff. Chuck.
I would agree with that last comment of Eric's. From from the multifamily side of it, there's nothing for sale in Florida. Everything's an off-market deal. We just have so much growth coming in, and we're several years, as our economists showed us on the graph, we're so many years behind on product for housing throughout the country. And I can tell you in Florida, we're probably a little farther behind than that. I also think that it's going to be interesting to see how Class A office space works out, because right now, even in Florida, where you have national firms that have a lot of space in downtown Orlando, their law firms, no one's in that space except maybe an administrative person. Because they have national firms, they've made a national decision that do not go to work. And so where Florida's opened up very quickly compared to the rest of many of the folks that are listening, we've got office space, Class A office space, with 7 to 10 years left on leases with no one in them. And so that's got to change. That's got to impact something. And so even here in not so big downtown like Orlando, I think Class A office space is going to have some difficulties as people start downsizing and say, I really don't need this much space. We can work from home. I have a very prominent friend as an attorney. He's a couple years younger than I am, but he said, Chuck, I don't think I'll ever go back to the office from working unless I'm going to meet somebody. And he's not the only one.
Right. Ian, how about the European perspective on products that'll thrive?
Yeah, no, well, I think at the minute, I'm all about the suburbs. I think that kind of echoes what the guys were just saying there. I mean, I think from an office's perspective, we've seen we have a lot of very large tech companies and pharmaceutical companies here in Dublin. And, there's questions being raised as to whether it is sensible to have all of your staff in one very large building in the center of town. So I think, from an office's perspective, we can maybe see a sort of HQ in the center of town and then satellite offices spread around Dublin. And we've seen a number of the large tech and financial occupiers already pursue that strategy. I think from a residential perspective, again, it sounds very similar to the market in Orlando, actually, a real echo. There is so much money pointed at PRS, but what we have seen is that there's been a flight of residents from the CBD, and where the smart money is going is again out into the suburbs. And I think in a sort of Dublin market perspective, there's some concern over the level of rents in the centre of town in the residential aspect. So, and then again, strangely also from a retail perspective, these small neighborhood schemes that are offering, the milk you forgot to buy, the hairdresser, the takeaway meal, sort of very, very specific and small scale services for the chimney pots located around them. We think, it is still a sustainable model, but has obviously been, slightly tarnished by the overall negative sentiment towards retail. So yeah, we're all about the suburbs here.
Carol, anything to add, Carol?
I do. You know what? There is going to be post-COVID, and I pray it's going to be sooner than later. And the reality is we're humans, and humans like to interact with people. So I believe that all areas are going to thrive. They're going to survive. They're going to thrive, with the caveat that if they were in a positive cash flow before all this started, they're going to get through it. They may look differently. And to your point, Ian, many of them have had to look to say, how do we restructure who we are? What are the services we need to add? Who knew that you could go to the market and pick up something and come home and cook it, and Uber Eats and all of those, they've been around a bit, but now they are in a bigger way, and they're really going to the restaurants that are surviving right now. So our local economy in Las Vegas, we're ready for retail therapy. There is no place like Las Vegas, and I know you guys know that, and Joe, I know it's a favorite place of yours. And the reality is that we're waiting, and we'll rise to whatever the new norm is. And these retail offices, you know, you can order something online, and the reality is we still want it now. So to be able to go down to the mall, the store, and either exchange it, return it, or buy something to go with it, or circle in and, like you say, pick up the milk, those needs are not going to go away. They may look a little different, but it's going to be okay. It's going to be different, and it hasn't been easy, but post-COVID is coming.
Mm-hmm. Hey, Joe, I saw a chat question really asking me about.
Take that.
Yeah. I would say that I don't want to say that office space is gone. I think for us, and we can probably maintain our offices remotely as owners, but it's really hard to grow your office as everybody's remote. You have a synergy that you need people, and you feed off each other of ideas. You have iron sharpen iron. You have wisdom on the counsel of many. And so, and you feed off ideas. So I don't want to say that, you know, office is gone away. That's not my implied, but I do think folks who can work independently, like lawyers, there will be a change. It will look differently, because now with technology, they don't need to have to go to a law library. They just go to their computer and they log onto the server.
You know, Chuck, I would agree with that. And I think especially in our industry that the face-to-face and the collaboration work is very, very crucial, and especially going back to developing the young talent as well. You know, young talent's not going to get the experience, in my opinion, sitting at home on their computer and just watching Zooms all day. They've got to be out in the marketplace. They've got to be working with veteran brokers. They've got to be learning, you know, the ins and outs of the business. And, you know, for the most part, you can't do that from behind a computer screen. And again, my personal opinion. And I wanted to add one thing to Carol, what you were saying about retail. I was sitting on a Zoom discussion the other day. There was a presentation by a local developer, a major developer, and he made the statement that retail was dying pre-COVID, and COVID has basically put the final nails in the coffin. And I jumped up and started yelling and screaming. And I said, there's the furthest thing from the truth. I said, this is, and I actually even wrote an article recently that, you know, this is not a retail apocalypse. This is a, you know, this is a, you know, a rebirth or you know, a readjustment of some sort. And, you know, quick story. I'm fortunate enough to represent a couple of regional restaurant groups that are well capitalized and in good position. And I'm doing deals right now with both of them because main locations that were not previously available. So they created an opportunity, and landlords that are desperate for new tenants. One deal that I just did with one of my major restaurants is 8 months free rent, with the balance of the year being the percentage of the negotiated rent against the percentage of allowed occupancy by the local government. So essentially they've got a full year of relief, and it's a great opportunity for them to get in the doors, get rolling under these circumstances. So I would say that retail is not dead, and I do believe that retail will come back strong after this is over. But we're up against some time here, and I really want to get to one of the most important questions that we have. And I'm going to start with Carol on this one. How can you effectively leverage your relationship with the CORFAC network right now?
Continuing to do exactly what we're doing today, the networking, the picking up the phone, reaching across state lines. We have got to get involved however possible when asked, and you spoke to that and gave Chuck the kudos for what he's been doing. And the reality is, it's a journey, and we continue to learn every day. We're never going to know it all. We learn every single day, and just pay it forward, give it back, and just keep doing what you're doing.
Excellent. Ian, when you're done drinking, how can you effectively leverage your CORFAC relationship right now?
Well, I think it's very much keeping talking to each other, and I think certainly from a European perspective, it's been very useful. I think as everybody's started to use Zoom and Teams and the other platforms more, that across the European CORFAC network, we've actually, I think, been talking more to each other than we might have otherwise done. So I've probably seen a lot more of my sort of CORFAC colleagues than I would have normally done over a summer. So with the exception of Charlie Thompson in London, that's always a pleasure. But I think that really is the key for us, is to keep talking to each other and making the time and making it a priority to try and help out CORFAC colleagues. We've, as I said, certainly had good experience and discovered, received good assistance, when we've looked for it. And I think we're certainly very positive, that CORFAC's going to continue to develop for us and start delivering new business for us, from across the globe, hopefully.
Indeed. Chuck?
Let me answer this for folks that are the non-principals, because maybe the brokers are out there. I would say that if you're not connecting with CORFAC folks, your brothers and sisters in CORFAC, then you're losing an opportunity. So I would say pick some hubs where business comes in and out from your marketplace. Research their website. Find a couple of brokers, your age, whatever, that you want to connect with, and build a relationship. That's so important, because us as principals, we're paying a fee, but the fee is not, we don't get a lot out of it unless you guys make deals, right? And so I really just encourage, this is an opportunity for them to expand their network, not only from being on Zooms like this where they can learn, but expand relationships, learn from others individually who are maybe in the same spot you are in your walk, in your journey of your career.
Great stuff. Eric?
Just echoing what all of these folks have said, I totally agree. I think you get out of things what you put into it. And candidly, I'd like to see more of our folks really delve more into CORFAC, and the few that have reaped benefits. And I will say, for me, it's been great in that I'm able to leverage some of the other principals across the country when being asked a question of what's going on in such and such area or state, et cetera. It's been simple. And I'd also say this, in the last 6 months, I've had more of our agents, brokers contacting me, asking me where our relationship is in such and such an area. And it's been a godsend having CORFAC and the level of consistency there. And I kid you not, in 6 months, I bet I've had more than in 5 years. And that's because we're asking more questions of our clients. Our clients are digging deeper into their business. And do I really need this facility in this tertiary city, or whatever the case may be? And it's opened up a heck of a lot of opportunities, and CORFAC has been there for it.
Excellent. Thank you, Eric.
Hey,
Colonel-
Joe, I would just add of what we've benefited from. I really appreciate the folks from headquarters and the leadership of getting Zoom calls. It was very helpful for me as a principal of a firm to know that I wasn't the only one feeling how I was feeling in my market. It's very difficult for me to go talk to a competitor and say, how are you feeling about this market? But it was great to be on those Zoom calls early that was set up by the leadership and by the headquarters, that we could have that conversation with our fellow partners in other markets. And it was comforting to me to know that I wasn't the only one feeling this. And then as we went through, particularly a good example was as principals, and also we talked about how do we dealing with these tenants, particularly retail tenants who want rent abatement. Well, it was awesome for us to be able to talk about that, and we got good ideas from each other.
Joe, if I could just piggyback real briefly what Chuck said, the reality is, and maybe this is for the younger, newer brokers in the industry, the knowledge that you can garner from this organization is huge. And that alone, just those conversations and knowing what area of focus you want to be in the brokerage world will in itself create an amazing pipeline.
Great stuff. Yes. Yeah, we thought it was very important to get out to the members, especially since we were unable to meet personally this year, and at least keep the information flowing and keep the knowledge out in the foremost. So I know we're a little over time. We're going to stay a few more minutes. Kurt, I'm not ignoring you. Hopefully you're still on. I will get to your question in a few minutes. I do want to wrap up with this last question, and we can kind of be brief and even have fun with it if you'd like, panelists. But let's start with Carol. And the question is a simple: share briefly your best advice you've ever received in commercial real estate.
It's okay to say you don't know. It's not okay to not quickly and swiftly get the answer and circle back.
Words of wisdom. Fantastic. Ian?
Well, I suppose we have a phrase we work to here that the work is never wasted. You know, a lot of the work we do, you know, can be prove abortive in the end, but the number of times that, you know, having put the effort in, you're then able to reuse that work on some other project. You know, that's happened so many times now. So that would certainly be the bit of wisdom from Ireland.
Excellent. Chuck?
My mentor, real estate mentor, used to say, a relationship's the most powerful force in business.
Indeed. Eric?
The gentleman I trained under, the very first thing he said is the biggest asset you can have is the ability to listen. So often our young folks want to show off everything they know, and while they're doing that, they forget to hear what the client's needs are. So listen.
Great stuff, guys. Thank you very much, Past. I appreciate it. We're going to briefly roll into a Q&A. There's one question I didn't get to from Kurt Walsh, and I would encourage anybody else, if you have a moment, post. Like I said, I know we're a little bit over here, but you know, it's all been quality stuff, and we don't want to cut anybody short. But I'll pose this, and this is an interesting one from Kurt. I'll pose it to the panel. For people who have seen civil unrest like the riots here in downtown Chicago, how have tenants and landlords who have been hit maneuvering through it? Any insight? And I guess that's not really relevant to you, but Vegas, Orlando, Southern California, not so sure if you guys, you know, have seen it. Certainly not to the extent that some of the other cities have. So I don't know. Does anyone have any insight with that? Probably not. Sorry, Kurt. We will maybe look elsewhere for the answer. All right. Does anyone have any other questions before we wrap up the panel? Okay. I don't see any. Type fast if you're typing. If that is it, then I would graciously thank each and every one of our prestigious panel today. The answers have been thought-provoking, very knowledgeable, and I appreciate your time as always, as we are very busy people. I will kind of roll on from here and encourage everyone to participate in the remaining sessions for our virtual fall summit. Of course, keeping in mind that it is free for all members. And actually, we're also encouraging you to invite any clients as well. We have, this will be it for this week. We'll continue next week on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, wrapping up on Thursday with the keynote speaker, Curtis Spencer. It'll be a great session. We've got technology on Tuesday and next gen on Wednesday. So HQ, anything from you guys before we wrap up today?
Just thank you everybody for being here. It was just a fantastic exchange and great ideas. And keep in mind, all these sessions are recorded, so we will send out links to everybody, and, you know, share them with your staff, please.
Excellent. So, with that said, and no more. Okay, Josh, we'll get you on that one. And with that said, I think we're going to wrap up for today. So again, thank you, panelists. Amazing information. Don't forget, again, thanks for Build Out for sponsoring the session. For those of you who need assistance with your Build Out sync, either if you didn't take down the email address that Chris gave you in the beginning, just reach out to headquarters and they'll help you with that. And with that, I will say adieu.
Thank you.
See ya.
Thanks all.